So the beast empire. As I said, this is Daniel chapter 2, verses 1 to 43, and this is part 2 of 2, and we're going to be looking, and this is lesson 6 for those that need to know the order. And so in the last lesson, we found Daniel interpreting a dream. This was Nebuchadnezzar's dream of 4 succeeding kingdoms, beginning with Babylon, which was the head of gold, through Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. That we saw all of that in the last lesson. We're going to expand on that a little bit more. And as you go through Daniel, you're going to find out that Daniel expands even more on this very subject. So Daniel chapter 2, verse 31 says, "Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. This image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth." Exciting. I mean, these are exciting prophecy once we understand what this is all about. So, just as silver is inferior to gold, each succeeding kingdom would be inferior to the one preceding it. So we started with Babylon. We work our way down to Rome. And as you'll learn in this study, Rome has never disappeared from the scene. It's still with us today. It's called by a different name, and we're going to learn this as we go through here. Now, Daniel interprets the dream, and he goes on to say in Daniel 2, verse 36, "This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king, art a king of kings, for the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given unto thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold," as depicted upon this statue that we see here. And of course, gold is the best of the metals that we have in value. "So after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee, which is silver, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth." So Daniel is telling the king that his kingdom will not last forever, but there's going to be succeeding kingdoms in the world. And this is a theme that we see going through all the prophecies of the Bible, particularly when we get into the book of Revelation. You're going to see that, because I'm going to bring out Revelation today in this study. "The fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron," verse 40, "for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay, And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdoms shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. Now these four empires are shown with the two aspects of Daniel chapter 2 and 7. First as a statue of degrading metals, then as follows. So we're going to look at two aspects as presented by Daniel. Now we haven't got into Daniel chapter 7 yet, but we're going to skip ahead into Daniel chapter 7 and look at part of it, but we will not elaborate so much on it until we actually get into chapter 7. But the first empire is the Babylonian Empire. It is the head of gold in Daniel chapter 2, verse 38, and lion-like beast. It's a lion-like beast found in Daniel chapter 7, verse 4. So Daniel chapter 2, verse 38, and wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold. Notice the same aspect of Babylon in Daniel 7:4, because Daniel 7:4 is speaking of Babylon, these kingdoms that are succeeding each other. So Daniel 7, verse 4, the first was like a lion, talking about four kingdoms here. We've already seen four kingdoms in the statue. Now we're going to look at the four kingdoms in a different way. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. So the different aspects of the Babylonian Empire are found in Daniel chapter 1, chapter 1 through chapter 5, verse 30, and chapter 7, verse 4. We picked it up first in chapter 2, though. Now, each of these aspects will be dealt with fully in the appropriate chapters, so you'll have to come back for more at the time that we're looking at these chapters. So, second is the Medo-Persian Empire, and it's represented by the two arms and breasts of silver in Daniel 39, part A, and a bear-like beast in Daniel 7, verse 5. So Daniel 2, verse 39 says, and after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee. So we've got two kingdoms now being talked about here, and he's repeating this. He just began to talk about it in Daniel chapter 2, and he's repeating it in Daniel 7. So in Daniel 7, verse 5, and behold another beast, a second like a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had three ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it, and they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. So you'll have to come back to see what all of that means in chapter 7, but just realize that we're looking at the same things. So different aspects of the Medo-Persian Empire are found in Daniel 2, verse 39a, and chapter 5, verse 31 to chapter 6, verse 28, and chapter 7, verse 5, chapter 8, verses 1 to 7, and chapter 10, verses 1 to chapter 11, verse 2. So you can see that all of this is important to Daniel, these succeeding kingdoms that we're looking at. Each of these aspects will be dealt with fully in the appropriate chapters. Don't worry, I'm not going to leave you dry here without learning something, though, today. Now, third, Hellenistic Greek empire is the third empire. And that would be the belly and thighs of brass. That's brought out in Daniel chapter 2, verses 39b. And a leopard-like beast in Daniel chapter 7, verse 6. Daniel chapter 2, verse 39. And another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. And then in Daniel 7, verse 6, it says, after this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Now, Greece was unified under Alexander the Great. That's one of the reasons that this critics like to discredit Daniel, because it is so specific on detail of these prophecies. And now we find that Alexander the Great is even part of this prophecy. So the Greek Empire was divided among 4 generals after Alexander's death. And different aspects of the Greek Empire are found in Daniel chapter 2, verse 39b, chapter 7, verse 6, chapter 8, verse 7 to 27, and chapter 11, verses 3 to 35. Now, each of these aspects of the Greek Empire will be dealt with fully in the appropriate chapters. Now, fourth, we're going to concentrate a little bit on the fourth one here. The fourth is imperialism, beginning with Rome, 63 BC to the present and beyond. Daniel, legs of iron with feet and toes of iron mixed with clay, Daniel 2, verses 40 to 43, and the beast with iron teeth with 10 horns, Daniel 7, verses 7 to 10. Now, Revelation, this is the same as the beast with the 7 heads and 10 horns. So we see the beast depicted all the way through Scripture. We may see a different type of beast each time, but essentially it's depicting the same things. But as you move through Scripture, it's giving you a whole lot more information. That's why the book of Revelation and Daniel go so well together. Now, different aspects of this beast are found in Daniel 2, verses 40 to 43, chapter 7, verses 7 to 12, chapter 9, verse 19, also 27, chapter 9, verse 27, and chapter 11, verse 36 to 45, and Revelation 13, 1 to 10, and 17, 7 to 14. Now, the legs and feet with 10 toes of Daniel 2 is the same as the fourth beast of Daniel 7 and the beast in Revelation 13 and 17. And like I said, if I gave you all the information now, I'd have nothing to teach you in Daniel chapter 7, right? So, these kingdoms were united under Rome, the first imperialistic government. Rome set up its own Roman rulers in its occupied lands. The example was that Pilate was a ruler there in Palestine there. And in contrast, the previous 3 kingdoms had established rulers from among the conquered people. So we have the Medo-Persian, the Babylonian, and the Greek, and they moved in, they set up their rulers among the people and moved on. And these people were puppets or vassals of the particular kingdom. But Rome was different in that they moved their own people into place. And now Rome was and is manifested as the 2 east-west divisions, Rome and Constantinople, beginning in 364 A.D. Now, this is continued to the present time through colonial systems. This is important for you to understand this concept, that Rome never completely fell. It divided up into colonial systems of east and west, east-west balance of power, to the breakup of Soviet communism and now seems to be giving way to the push towards global unification, which is globalism, possibly taking the form of technocracy. This is just starting to pop up on the internet, technocracy. And this is adherence to Agenda 21 now emerging. And you can see these two legs of Rome, these two legs of iron, if you will, and you can see if you can actually read this up there, you'll find that there's a number of colonial empires depicted on these two legs that represented the continuation of Rome. Now, the Beast Empire has a one-world government stage being implemented today by the push for global economies and regionalization, which is the EU, European Union, NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement, CAFTA, which is Central American Free Trade Agreement, United Nations, IMF, World Bank, World Court, public-private partnerships. We're seeing this more and more today. Various other free trade agreements. This is nothing more than setting up world government. Okay? So this one world system will eventually split into 10 divisions, and I believe it already has, the 10 toes, possibly already being accomplished through regionalization as proposed by the Club of Rome in 1973 and is being implemented today. I believe this map represents better than some that I've seen the actual condition of the world that we see today. And I believe the setting up of the North American Union, while is in progress, is not yet fully implemented, but we're seeing that as we go along. Now, there's that map again. I think it's a little bit better to take a look at. You'll see that you can see the European Union is Europe in that dark blue, and the North American Union, I believe, will be that lighter blue color. The African Union is already in place, which is a very light blue color. And you have various others. South American, which is Mercosur. That's already in place. But anyway, as you move along, you'll see that these are 10 regions. These are purposely set up for making the world one. In defiance, I might add, to God's dividing us into nations, Genesis chapter 10. The UN divides the world into 10 regional groupings. Agenda 21, Sustainable Development. This global contract binds governments around the world to the UN plan for changing the ways we live, eat, learn, and communicate, all under the noble banner of saving the earth. Its regulations would severely limit water, electricity, and transportation, even deny human access to our most treasured wilderness areas. If implemented, it would manage and monitor all lands and people. No one would be free from the watchful eye of the new global tracking and information system. According to Barrett Jose, Local Agenda 21, the UN plan for your community. I believe this is what is taking place today, and there will be, I believe that they will implement this by faking shortages and other things that will gradually wean you off of the things that you're accustomed to. Now, in the following map, and this is, we're looking at Agenda 21 now. In the following map, you have unrestricted use of the zones in green if you can find them. Agenda 21 and technocracy plans to move you into working areas and take you out of the rural areas and let the rural areas go back to its pristine condition. But they're going to not deny you access to these. So more and more they're taking these things away from you. What is indicated in red is actually, I believe these are, I can't see my thing. If you can see it up there, it's actually over there. In other words, the red part is little or no human use at all. And you'll find that Nevada, in particular, is federal land for the most part. So, all right. So the 10-division stage, the world will organize into 10 kingdoms, the 10 toes, regionalization, EU, NAFTA, etc., that will change to 11 with the rise of the little horn, the Antichrist, Daniel 7, verse 8. Then it will be reduced to 7 when Antichrist removes 3 kings, after which he becomes the 8th. Daniel 7, verse 24, 25, Revelation 13, 11. We will address this point again. The Antichrist stage, absolute imperialism. At this point, the Antichrist is firmly in control as the world ruler, ruling all 10 divisions. But this rule will only last until the system is completely destroyed by Jesus Christ at the second coming, at which time the fourth empire will end to be replaced by the messianic millennial kingdom. And next week, I'm going to talk about this millennial kingdom for your benefit so you can understand more deeply what we're talking about here, because there is a kingdom that is coming that will be set up by Jesus Christ. And we need to understand that as we go through. So eventually Rome, 160 BC to 500 AD, sprang on the scene, represented by the legs of iron. Rome, in due course, was divided into 2 parts, the Western and Eastern division, with centers in Rome and Constantinople. These 2 parts represent the East-West balance of power that has existed since 364 AD, when Emperor Valentinian I divided the Roman Empire into an East and West division, and from then on, we have been divided as such. Despite its fall, Rome has continued to the present day in the East-West balance of power. Notice the colonial empires in the legs into which Rome split. It's important for you to understand that concept, that Rome is still with us today. Now, Rome began to deteriorate and crumbled into strong and weak factions, eventually being divided up into separate empires, but maintaining the Roman identity. Various ones of these were prominent, such as the British, Belgium, German, French, Portuguese, Dutch, Spanish, Russian, Grecian, Byzantine, and Italian colonial empires. They moved into and created colonies wherever they moved, whatever land that they came into contact with. They created colonies, and they worked the land pretty much to death as they took the produce out of the land wherever they happened to light. All of these were of the old Roman Empire, and I think of when we're talking about the moving into the colonial systems, we're talking even to the colonial systems that was set up before the United States was founded on this continent, in our own land, by England and others. Now, Rome continued to rule the world through the European colonial system until 1945, when the system was broken up by agreement at Yalta between Roosevelt and Stalin. It was now if you remember, if you're old enough to remember, you remember the colonial system started to disappear about this time, after World War II. And so this was all in agreement at Yalta between Roosevelt and Stalin. It was the European colonial system that produced most of the wars during the last 1,000 years, as prophesied by Daniel, that the legs of iron would jostle and bruise. Today we see most of these represented in the European Union. Rome has never disappeared. We're talking about the colonial empire, the countries that founded those colonies. And so it was always within the Roman Empire, and they just sent colonies out to other parts of the world. So Rome has never disappeared. The German leader became the Kaiser, and the Russian leader became the Tsar. Both Kaiser and Tsar are derived from the Roman Caesar. The legs of iron depicted Rome's great strength. These legs took up half the height of the image, indicating that the Roman Empire would outlast all the others. The Babylonian Empire lasted about 70 years, the Persian about 200 years, the Greek about 180 years, and the Roman about 500 years. Rome, in a disunited state, has survived to the present time, only waiting to be united once more. And I believe they are eagerly putting this together as we speak. Now, the 10 toes of iron and clay indicate that the final stage before the return of Christ to set up his kingdom would be a mixture of strong and weak nations, a revived Roman Empire in these last days. Many have attempted to revive Rome, such as Napoleon and Hitler, but all have failed. After World War II, the nations set up the United Nations to unite mankind under a banner of world government. How has that worked for you so far? Huh? Today's emphasis is focusing on establishing power in this body to lead the world. Europe has formed its alliances with the various European nations under the European Union. The United States is entering into agreements of cooperation through treaties like NAFTA and CAFTA to form open borders in this hemisphere similar to the European Union, thus creating a North American Union, or NAU. And think for a moment, what's the purpose of the open borders? Consolidation of Asian countries will complete the third leg of the goal of the Trilateral Commission, which is an organization founded by David Rockefeller, Zbigniew Brzezinski. Jimmy Carter was a big part of the Trilateral Commission as well. So anyway, the consolidation of Asian countries we've had the consolidation of Europe. We're now having consolidation of the United States. I believe that is in progress as we speak, and the consolidation of other parts of the world. But under the goal of the Trilateral Commission is uniting of the world into three interrelated economic zones: European, Americas, and Asia, controlled by a world body. This is what they intend. The control of these emerging nations is proving difficult to manage, as national sovereignty is difficult for individual nations to relinquish. Now, what they need to do is to devise a scheme where you're willing to give up liberty or freedom for something else, for protection, if you will. And I think they're accomplishing that. And there is David Rockefeller's Trilateral Commission is completing their goals of world domination. Watch the development of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, TTP, with ASEAN and ACFTA, which is China. Watch over there because this is something they need to complete now. And this is in the news all the time now. Senator Barry M. Goldwater, in his book With No Apologies, wrote, and some of you here might remember Senator Barry Goldwater from Arizona. You remember? You got... Anyway, I don't want to give away your age, or mine, supposedly. But anyway, Senator Barry M. Goldwater, in his book With No Apologies, wrote, "What the trilaterals truly intend is the creation of a worldwide economic power superior to the political government of the nation states involved as managers and creators of the system they will rule the world." This is a United States senator who almost became president, by the way. He ran against Lyndon Johnson in the election after Kennedy was assassinated. And he's telling you right here what the intention was of the Trilateral Commission and the people forming this world system. So in the same book, Senator Goldwater went on, and he says, in my view, the Trilateral Commission represents a skillful, coordinated effort to seize control and consolidate the four centers of power: political, monetary, intellectual, and ecclesiastic. And in the same book, Senator Goldwater went on, and I think that's the same one. Okay, so he is referring to control of government, political, banking, money, education, intellectual, and religion, or ecclesiastical. So this is what they are doing. They're getting control of it. David Rockefeller, founder of the Trilateral Commission, wrote in his autobiography, Memoirs, page 405, and you can look it up yourself. You don't have to believe me, but this is what he said in that book. He said, "Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists, and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure, one world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I am proud of it." So do you think he has your best interest at heart? I don't think so. In speeches before Congress and at the United Nations during the First Gulf War, President Bush declared that what they were after was a new world order. And also Pope John Paul II also spoke about the same thing. Mikhail Gorbachev, all of these men mentioned a new world order that they were trying to achieve. So Nebuchadnezzar's ambition was world empire. That's from the beginning, Nebuchadnezzar. Today we are reassembling the nations again in humanistic defiance to God who divided the nations at Babel. That's exactly what we are doing. We are assembling a new world order, and your leaders know it because they're participating in it. What is this new world order that President Bush alluded to and President Clinton hinted at by referring to the book Tragedy and Hope? And finally, Henry Kissinger said that it was President Obama's job to bring it about. What is this new world order? First, the world political system is unifying through the United Nations and regionalization, or one world government. Second, the United Nations and the leaders of the various religions are attempting to unify the major religions of the world, one world religion. This appears to be a goal of Pastor Rick Warren and his purpose-driven church. Remember, Pastor Rick Warren is a member of David Rockefeller that founded uh, Council on Foreign Relations. And you can look that up. I'm not lying. You can look that up on the internet, go to Council on Foreign Relations, and look for the membership list, and you will find him listed on it. Third, the world's money powers are attempting to remake the world's economic systems, global economy or globalization. And fourth, the world's intellectual establishment is attempting to mold the minds of the world's citizens into a global allegiance, anti-nationalism, anti-patriotism, globalism, Agenda 21, sustainability, and technocracy, the new buzzword, technocracy, which is basically the fulfillment of Agenda 21. Together, these are termed the New World Order. The idea of New World Order is not new. William Jefferson Clinton, in accepting the nomination of the Democratic Party for President of the United States, made reference to his mentor while he was at Georgetown University, Carroll Quigley, and Professor Quigley's book, Tragedy and Hope. Now, the only reason that someone would mention this book is if they understood the secret underpinnings of what's taking place in the creation of this world system. Tragedy and Hope is a history of the world that describes a secret organization of influential men and groups so arranged with an inner and outer circle. Professor Quigley related that he had studied and had been permitted to examine the records of this secret organization and generally agreed with their goals. Now, it is significant that Bill Clinton mentioned this book since it essentially describes the setting up of roundtable groups throughout the world as advocated by Cecil Rhodes to federate the English-speaking peoples and to bring all the habitable portions of the world under their control. One such roundtable is the Council on Foreign Relations here in the United States. And there again, you can purchase Tragedy and Hope, and you can read for yourself what these people are doing. And don't forget, he was a well-respected Georgetown University professor, a place where Bill Clinton had attended, and Quigley was his mentor. According to Quigley, this was the purpose for which Cecil Rhodes established the Rhodes Scholarships at Oxford. William Jefferson Clinton was a Rhodes Scholar. Quigley wrote that, now this is Quigley, he says, the powers of financial capitalism had another far-reaching aim, nothing less than to create a world system of financial control in private hands, able to dominate the political system of each country and the economy of the world as a whole. This system was to be controlled in a feudalist fashion by the central banks of the world, acting in concert by secret agreements arrived at in frequent private meetings and conferences. Now, have you noticed that we have secret meetings in different parts of the world, and you and I are not invited to these, by the way. G7, G8, whatever, and what comes out of them, who knows? But they have them, and they decide what is going to take place in different parts of the world. And this is what Carroll Quigley, William Jefferson Clinton's professor, wrote in this book. There's many more things that he wrote in the book, but that's an example. Now, Tragedy and Hope, originally published by the Macmillan Company in 1996, was suppressed shortly after release. I wonder why. Because he was spilling the beans a little bit too early. And finally, in the 1990s, sometime after being mentioned by Bill Clinton, the book has been reprinted. By the time it reached Bill Clinton, pretty much was too late to stop what they intended to do. So they can let you know. The beasts of Revelation 12, 13, and 17. The times of the Gentiles ends with the second coming of Christ. Then the Messianic kingdom, the 1,000-year rule of Christ, is established. We will now briefly look at the progression of these Gentile empires with the beasts of Revelation 12, 13, and 17. Revelation 12, verse 3, "And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his heads." Revelation 13:1, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, upon his heads the name of blasphemy." And verse 2, "And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority." Revelation chapter 17, verse 3, "So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns." And verse 7, "And the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns." And verse 10, "And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and one is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space." And verse 11, "On the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition." Now this beast is more fully described in Revelation than in Daniel. This type of beast is first seen in Revelation in chapter 12 as the dragon or Satan, and chapter 13 when the Antichrist comes on the scene. We learn a little more about this beast each time we encounter him in the Scriptures. The beast is the system. The beast is the system from which the Antichrist emerges. The beast is further interpreted in Revelation 17, where it is destroyed as an imperial system. This beast is representative of the 4th empire of Daniel 2 and is also representative of the Antichrist. So it's a system, but it's more than a system. Do you see what I mean? The beast is a system. The woman that rides the beast in Revelation 17 is sitting upon the system. Okay? And you'll find out more about that beast a little bit later on. So the 10 horns represent kings, of whom the Antichrist becomes the 11th. Then he removes 3, leaving 7, and then he becomes the 8th. Daniel 7, verse 24, 25, and Revelation 13, verse 11. We now need to describe the 7 heads of this beast. There are 2 views or opinions regarding the interpretation of these heads, and both interpretations involve Rome. So the first view is there are 7 steps to Roman imperialism. The first head, the Tarquin kings, 753 to 510. The second head, this is BC, by the way. Second head is the consulars, 510 to 494 BC. Third head is the plebeians, 494 to 390 BC. Fourth head is the republicans, 390 to 59 BC. Fifth head is the triumvirate, 59 to 27 BC. Sixth head, imperialistic Rome from 27 BC, united through 10 division stage. Seventh head is the Antichrist stage. And you'll also notice that I've footnoted some of this. 5 have fallen, and I've put asterisks along beside the ones of the 5 that have fallen. And 1 is, which is Rome, and there's 2 asterisks beside the 6th head there. And 1 is to come, the future, which is the 7th head, the Antichrist stage. Now, I prefer the simpler system, which is the second view of 7 world empires. Egypt is the first head, Assyria the second head, Babylon the third head, Medo-Persia the 4th head, Greece the 5th head, and Rome the sixth head. And you're free to choose whichever system you'd like to choose. But the five have already fallen. Rome was with them when the prophecy was in the book of Revelation was being made. Rome was present, and there's going to be a revival of that system as the seventh head. So that's what it all means. Don't worry about which view that you choose. It all leads to Rome. So the seven heads on a single beast may possibly refer to the first view being the correct view, although the second view is the most popular view, and I kind of like the second view myself. So, because it's easy to teach, the second view. So the seven steps in the first view refer to the stages of development of the Roman government leading towards imperialism. And this government began to become imperialistic about 63 BC. Now, whichever view is correct, the conclusion is the same, a revival of the Roman Empire in the last days. Now, we will close out chapter 2 in the next lesson as we discuss the righteous kingdom. Now, there will be tests next week on what we learned here. All right. Okay, this is the end of the study.